Section 3 of the Travels of Ibn Battuta. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Travels of Ibn Battuta by Ibn Battuta. Translated by Samuel Lee. Chapter 6, 7, and 8. Iraq, Persia, and Turkey. Chapter 6. El Arus, Najd, El Qadesiyah, Meshed, Ali, Basrat, Kafaja, Kawarnak, Wazit, El Obala, Abadan, Ellar, Iraq, Magun, Ramin, Tostar. When things were ready, the Syrian pilgrims proceeded on their pilgrimage, and I myself with them, with the same intention. This turned out well, for, thank God, I duly performed the pilgrimage, and then proceeded with the pilgrims of Iraq to the tomb of the Prophet at Medina. After 3 days, we descended into the valley of El Arus. We then entered the territory of Najd, and proceeded on in it till we came to El Qadesiyah, the place in which the remarkable event happened, by which the fire worship of Persia was extinguished, and the interest of Islamism advanced. This was at that time a great city, but it is now only a small village. We next proceeded to the city of Meshed Ali, where the grave of Ali is thought to be. It is a handsome place and well peopled. All the inhabitants, however, are of the Hafiza or Shia sect. There is no governor here except a sort of tribune. The inhabitants consist chiefly of rich and brave merchants. About the gardens are plastered walls adorned with paintings, and within them are carpets, couches, and lamps of gold and silver. Within the city is a large treasury kept by the tribune, which arises from the votive offerings brought from different parts. For when any one happens to be ill, or to suffer under any infirmity, he will make a vow and thence receive relief. The garden is also famous for its miracles, and hence it is believed that the grave of Ali is there. Of these miracles the night of revival is one. For on the 7th day of the month Rajab, cripples come from the different parts of Fars, Rum, Khorasan, Iraq, and other places, assemble in companies from 20 to 30 in number. They are placed over the grave soon after sunset. People then, some praying, others reciting the Koran, and others prostrating themselves, wait, expecting their recovery and rising, when about night they all get up sound and well. This is a matter well known among them. I heard it from creditable persons, but was not present at one of these nights. I saw, however, several such afflicted persons who had not yet received, but were looking forwards for the advantages of this night of revival. I next arrived at Basra and proceeded on with the Badawin Arabs of Kafaja, for there is no travelling in these parts, except with them. We next came to Kawarnak, the ancient residence of El-Numan ibn Mond Or, whose progenitors were kings of the tribe, Beni Ma el-Sama, sons of heavenly seed. There are still traces of his palace to be seen. It is situated in a spacious plain and upon a river derived from the Euphrates. We left this place and came next to the city of Wazit. It is surrounded by an extensive tract of country, and abounds with gardens and plantations. Its inhabitants are the best of all Iraq. From this place I set out to visit the tomb of El-Wali el-Arif, my lord Ahmed of Refat, which is situated in a village called Obaida, at a distance of a day from Wazit. At this place I arrived, and found that the grandson of the sheikh, upon whom the dignity of sheikh had also devolved, had come thither before me for the same purpose. He was also named Sheikh Ahmed, and held the dignity of his grandfather, which he exercised in the cell formerly occupied by him. In the afternoon, and after the reading of the Koran, the religious attached to the cell got together a great quantity of wood, to which they set fire. They then walked into it, some eating it, others rolling in it, and others trampling upon it, till they had entirely extinguished it. Such is the sect called El-Rifaya, and this the custom by which they are particularized. Some of them too will take great serpents in their teeth, and bite the head off. It happened that when I was in a certain part of India, there came to me a company of the religious of the Hidariya sect, having in their hands and about their necks iron chains. Their leader was a black of a filthy color. They requested me to solicit the governor of the place to bring them some wood, to which they may set fire, and then sing and walk into it. I did so, and he brought them 10 bundles. They then set fire to it, and commencing their song, went into it. Nor did they cease dancing and rolling about in it until they had extinguished it. The leader then asked me for a shirt. I gave him a very fine one, which he put on, and then proceeded to roll about in the fire, and to strike it with his sleeves until he had put it out. He then brought me the shirt, upon which the fire had not made the least impression. At this I very much wondered. After visiting this sheikh, I proceeded to Basra, a place much abounding with palms. The inhabitants are so friendly to strangers that a traveler has nothing to fear among them. We have here the Mosque of Ali, in which prayers are said every Friday. It is then closed till the next. This was formerly in the middle of the town, but is situated 2 miles from its present population. In this is the Koran which Othman had sent for the use of the inhabitants, and in which he was reading when he was killed. The marks of his blood are still visible in the words. I then went on board a sambuk, Turkish senbuki, which is a small boat, and proceeded to El Obala, which was once a large city, but is now only a village, which with its gardens about it is about 10 miles from Basra. I then sailed from El Obala in an arm of the Persian Gulf, and arrived the next morning at Abadan, which is a village situated in a salt marsh. It was my intention to have gone to Baghdad, but a person at Basra advised me to go on to the country of El-Lar, then to Iraq, El-Ajam, then to Arabian Iraq, and I did so. I then proceeded from Abadan by sea, and after 4 days arrived at the city of Magun or Magul, of the quantity faul, with the G pronounced hard. This is a small town on the Persian Gulf. I passed from this by land during a journey of 3 days, through a plain inhabited by Kurds, and came to the city of Ramin, a beautiful place, abounding with fruit and rivers. I then proceeded on through a plain, in which were villages of the Kurds, and in 3 days arrived at the city of Tostar, which is at the extremity of this plain. On the first of the mountains there is a large and beautiful city, abounding with fruits and rivers, surrounded by a river known by the name of El Azraq, the Blue. This river is wonderfully clear and is cold in the summer season. Chapter 7. Idaj, El-Lur, Ushturkan, Fairuzan, Tashnia Firuz, Shiraz, Khalil, Yezdkaz, Majd Uddin, founder of the college El-Majah, Mohammed Kuda Banda becomes a Sunni, Abu Ishaq, his liberality, Abu Abd Allah Kafif, the first Mohammedan who went from India to Ceylon, Kazarun, El-Zaidan, El-Hawaiza, Kufa. I then traveled for 3 days over high mountains, and found in every stage in these countries a cell with food for the accommodation of travelers. I then came to the city of Idaj, which belongs to the Sultan Atabek, Afrasiab. With these people, the word Atabek means anyone governing a district. The country is called El-Lur. It abounds with high mountains and has roads cut in the rocks. The extent in length is 17 days' journey, in breadth 10. Its king sends presents to the king of Iraq, and sometimes comes to see him. In every one of these stations in this country there are cells provided for the religious, enquirers, and travelers. And for every one who arrives there are bread, flesh, and sweetmeats. I traveled for 10 days in this country over high mountains with 10 other religious, one of whom was a priest, another a muezzin, a person who calls the people to prayers, and 2 professed readers of the Koran. The Sultan sent me a present containing money for traveling expenses, both for myself and my companions. Having finished the districts belonging to this king on the 10th day, we entered those of Ispahan and arrived at the city of Ushturkan, after this at Fairuzan, the name of which had been Tashnia Firuz, and then at Ispahan, one of the cities of Iraq, El-Ajam. This is a large and handsome city. I remained in it some days. I then set out for Shiraz, between which and Ispahan there are 20 stations, with the intention of visiting the Sheikh Majd Uddin at that place. In my journey I passed by the towns of Khalil and Yezdkaz, the latter of which is small, and arrived at Shiraz. It is an extensive and well-built city, though inferior to Damascus in the beauty of its streets, gardens, and waters. The inhabitants are people of integrity, religion, and virtue, particularly the women. For my own part, I had no other object than that of visiting the Sheikh Majd Uddin, the paragon of saints and worker of miracles. I came accordingly to the college called El-Majidiyah, which had been founded by him. He was then judge of the city, but on account of his age, the duties of the office were discharged by his brother's sons. I waited on him. When he came out, he showed me great kindness, and, embracing me, asked me about different places, to which I gave suitable answers. I was then taken into his college. The sheikh is much honored by the emirs of these parts, insomuch that when they enter his company, they take hold of both their ears, a ceremony of respect paid only to the king. They therefore pay him the respect due to their king. The reason of this is that when the king of Iraq, Mohammed Quda Banda, received Islamism, he had a favorite of the Rafiza, followers of Ali, named Jamal ibn Mutahar, who induced him to join the Shia sect, which he willingly did. The king then wrote to Baghdad, Shiraz, and other places, inviting them to be of this sect. The people of Baghdad and Shiraz, however, refused to do so, and continued to be of the sect of the Sunni. He then commanded the judges of these districts to be brought to him, and the first who arrived was this of Shiraz. The king ordered him to be thrown to some great dogs which he had, and which were kept with chains about their necks, for the purpose of tearing to pieces anyone with whom the Sultan should happen to be angry. When therefore the Qazi Majd Oddin was thrown to the dogs, they came, and looking upon him, began to wag their tails, making no onset upon him, nor in any way molesting him. This was told to the Sultan Quda Banda, who came running to him in a great fright. He then kissed his hands, and stripping off all his own robes, put them upon the sheikh. He then took him by the hand, and led him to his mansion. This therefore became the source of great dignity to the sheikh, his children, and to all belonging to him, which is the case with everyone upon whom the Sultan puts all his robes. The king then gave up the Shia sect, and became a Sunni, and to the sheikh he gave 100 villages in the district of Shiraz. Thus both the king and his courtiers bestowed the greatest honors upon the sheikh and upon his successors. I also visited this sheikh after my return from India, in the year 748 of the Hejira, Anno Domini 1347, and for this purpose I travelled a distance of 35 days. I once saw the Sultan of Shiraz, Abu Ishaq, holding his ears before him by way of respect. The Sultan of Shiraz, on my first arrival at that place, was Muhammad Abu Ishaq ibn Shah Yanju. He was one of the best of princes. His father Shah Yanju was governor of Shiraz under the king of Iraq, but when he died, the government was put into the hands of another. When, however, the king of Iraq died and left no issue, each of the governors assumed the government of the district over which he had been placed, and in this way the government of Shiraz, etc., came under the control of Abu Ishaq. He was a man much beloved on account of his courage and good conduct, and possessed a territory of a month and a half's journey, with an army of 50,000 men. In liberality, Abu Ishaq imitated the king of India, for on one occasion he gave to a person who had come before him the sum of 70,000 dinars. No one, however, can be compared to the king of India, for he will give sums equal to this many times in the same day, particularly to those who come from the parts of Khorasan. He once said to one of his courtiers, "Go into the treasury and bring as much gold as you can carry at once." The courtier filled 13 purses with gold, and tying them on his shoulders, attempted to go out, but fell through the weight of the purses. The king then commanded him to take and weight it, which he did, and found it to be 13 mounds of Delhi, the mound of Delhi being equal to 25 rattles of Egypt. On another occasion, he placed one of his emirs, namely Sharf-ul-Mulk Emir Bakht of Khorasan, in a pair of scales, putting gold in the opposite part, till the gold preponderated. He then gave him the gold and said, "Give alms out of this for your own salvation." He also appointed to the theologian and collector of traditions, Abd el-Aziz el-Ardabili, for his daily expenses, the sum of 100 dinars of silver, 25 of which are equal to the golden dinar. Upon one occasion, the above-mentioned sheikh entered into the presence of the king, who rose, and having kissed his feet, poured upon his head with his own hand a vessel full of gold, and said, "Both the gold and the vessel, which is gold, are thine." The most famous masjid of Shiraz is that of Ahmed ibn Musa, the brother of El-Riza, which is indeed held in the highest estimation. In this is the tomb of the Imam el-Qut el-Wali Abu Abd Allah ibn Kafif, who is the great exemplar of all the region of Fars. This Abu Abd Allah is the person who made known the way from India to the mountain of Serendib, and who wandered about the mountains in the island of Ceylon. Of his miracles, his entering Ceylon and wandering over its mountains in company with about 30 fakirs is one. For when these persons were all suffering from extreme hunger, and had consulted the sheikh on the necessity of slaughtering and eating an elephant, he positively refused and forbade the act. They nevertheless, impelled as they were by hunger, transgressed his commands, and killed a small elephant, which they ate. The sheikh, however, refused to partake. When they had all gone to sleep, the elephants came in a body, and smelling one of them, put him to death. They then came to the sheikh, and smelled him, but did him no injury. One of them, however, wrapped his trunk about him, and lifting him on his back, carried him off to some houses. When the people saw him, they were much astonished. The elephant then put him down and walked off. The infidels were much delighted with the sheikh, treated him very kindly, and took him to their king. The king gave credit to his story, and treated him with the greatest kindness and respect. When I entered Ceylon, I found them still infidels, although they had given great credit to the sheikh. They also very much honored the Mohammedan fakirs, taking them to their houses and feeding them, contrary to the practice of the infidels of India, for they neither eat with a Mohammedan, nor suffer him to come near them. I then left Shiraz, intending to make Kazerun, situated at the distance of 2 days' journey, in order to visit the tomb of the Sheikh Abu Ishaq el-Kazeruni. This sheikh is held high in esteem both in India and China. And even the sailors, when laboring under adverse winds, make great vows to him, which they pay to the servants of his cell, as soon as they get safely to shore. I accordingly visited the tomb of the Sheikh. I then left Kazarun and went to the city El Zaidan, the city of the two Zaids. It was so called because Zaid ibn Tabat and Zaid ibn Ahkam, two of the companions of the Prophet, were buried there. I then went to El Huwaiza, a small town inhabited by Persians, between which and Basra is the distance of 4 days, but from Kufa that of 5. From this place I went to Kufa through a desert, in which water was only to be found at one of its stages. This is one of the mother cities of Iraq, but it is now very much in ruins. In the mosque is the oratory, in which Ali was killed by the vile Ibn Muljim. In the back part of the mosque is the place in which Noah is said to have grown warm from the oven in the time of the deluge. Chapter 8. El-Hila, Karbala, Baghdad, Abu Sa'id, now king of Iraq. Ibn Battuta accompanies his army. Samarra, Tikrit, island of Ibn Omar. Nizibin, Sinjar, Dara, Mardin, Baghdad, Mosul, Mecca. I next arrived at the city of El-Hila, which runs far along by the side of the Euphrates. Its inhabitants are all followers of the 12 Imams. We have here a mosque, over the gate of which is an extended veil of silk. They call it the Mosque of the Last Imam. It is said that Muhammad ibn al-Azan al-Askari entered this mosque and became concealed in it. This person is, according to them, the Imam Mahdi or leader, who has long been expected. It is a practice with them to come daily, armed to the number of 100, to the door of this mosque, bringing with them a beast, saddled and bridled, a great number of persons also with drums and trumpets, and to say, "Come forth, Lord of the age, for tyranny and baseness now abounds." This then is the time for thy egress, that by thy means God may divide between truth and falsehood. They wait till night and then return to their homes. I next came to Karbala, and there visited the Meshed of the Imam el-Hossein, the son of Ali. This is one of the greatest mesheds. The inhabitants are of the sect of the 12 Imams. I next arrived at Baghdad, which, notwithstanding the injuries it has sustained, is still one of the largest of cities. Its inhabitants are mostly of the sect of Hanbal. In this place is the grave of Abu Hanifa, over which is a cell and a mosque. Not far off is the grave of the Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, as also that of El-Shibali, of Sari el-Sakti, of Bashar el-Hafi, of Dawood el-Tai, and of Abu Qasim el-Junayd, all of them Imams of the Sufis. When I entered Baghdad, the Sultan of the two Iraqs and Khorasan was Abu Sa'id Bahadur Khan, son of Mohammed Kuda Banda, which last was one of those Tartar kings who embraced Islamism, and with his brother Kazan ruled in these parts. When this Abu Sa'id died, he left no issue, and the consequence was his emirs each claimed and exercised the rule in those parts in which he had been placed. When Abu Sa'id left Baghdad for his own country, I traveled for 10 days with him, and saw the wonderful arrangement of their march, and their numerous army. I then went with one of his emirs to Tebris, which is a large and beautiful city. In this I lodged one night. But when an order came from the Sultan commanding the Emir Ala-ud-Din's presence in the camp, he set out the next day and took me with him. The Sultan, however, became acquainted with my being there, and sent for me accordingly. I presented myself to him, and was honored with a dress and other large presents. The Emir Ala-ud-Din told him that it was my intention to go on the pilgrimage. He accordingly ordered such conveyances and provisions for me as would be necessary for the undertaking. He also wrote to the same effect to the Emir of Baghdad. I then returned to Baghdad and claimed the royal bounty from the Emir. But as the time for the pilgrimage was distant, I set out for Mosul and Diyarbakir. I then went from Baghdad to the city of Samarra, which was in ruins. There had been a meshad in it, dedicated to the last Imam by the Rafiza, as in El-Hila. I then proceeded to Tikrit, a large city, then after many stages to Mosul. This is an ancient and strong place. Its citadel El-Hadba is splendid. From this I went to the island of Ibn Omar, where I arrived after 2 days. This is a large city surrounded by a valley, and has thence been called the island. The greatest part of it is now in ruins. The inhabitants are well informed, and are kind to strangers. From this place I went to Nizibin, where I arrived after a journey of 2 days. This is an ancient city, but is now mostly in ruins. It abounds in water and gardens, and is surrounded by a river as with a bracelet. Rose water, incomparable in scent, is made here. I then went to the city of Sinjar, a place abounding with fountains and rivers, much like Damascus. The inhabitants are Kurds, a generous and warlike people. At this place I saw the Sheikh el-Salih el-Wali el-Abid Abdallah el-Kurdi, the theologian. I met him with a party on the highest part of the mountain. They say that he does not break his fast of 40 days, except with a crust of barley bread. Many miracles are ascribed to him. I then went to the city of Dara, then to Margin, in which there is a very celebrated and strong citadel. The Sultan of Margin, at the time I entered it, was El-Melik el-Salih, the son of El-Melik el-Mansur. This is a very generous prince, and much praised by the poets, on whom he bestows splendid gifts. I now returned through Mosul to Baghdad, and there found the conveyances ready for the pilgrimage. With these I proceeded, and arrived at Mecca in the same year, and remained there during another. In the 2nd year arrived the caravan from Iraq, with a great quantity of alms for the support of those who were staying at Mecca and Medina. End of section 3.